Trying to unlearn our own biases, it can feel like this impossible, overwhelming task. Like we're supposed to achieve some kind of perfection that just isn't humanly possible. But what if there's a different way? A more forgiving, more realistic path to actually making progress?
Okay, let's get real for a second. Have you ever been there, that feeling of dread before a family dinner because you just know a tough conversation is going to come up? You're stuck, right? Do you challenge that prejudice comment and start a huge fight? Or do you stay quiet and then just feel terrible about it? That tension is something I think we all know.
And that feeling? That gets to the absolute heart of the problem. There's this immense pressure to be perfectly anti-prejudice, to have the flawless comeback, to never ever make a mistake. But that pressure doesn't help. It's paralyzing. The shame of getting it wrong often just stops us from even trying to get it right.
So what if we could just flip that whole script? Well, there's a new framework from a psychologist, Dr. Shungu Mgadza, and it offers a completely different way to think about all of this.
She calls it the becoming less and less model, and it's a game changer. It takes the goal of perfection and just tosses it out the window. Instead, it frames this work as a continuous journey, a process of recovery and growth, kind of like a 12-step program. The whole point is to take the shame out of it and instead focus on making small, steady progress.
So here's the big shift. The goal is not to become perfectly woke overnight. I mean, that's just not realistic, is it? The new goal is so much more achievable. It's simply to make a conscious effort every single day to become less a part of the problem. That's it.
And look at how these recovery principles are applied here. It's about a commitment to daily effort, not a one-and-done thing. It's about accountability, finding people who will challenge you in a good way. It's about honest reflection, being able to actually name your own beliefs without shame shutting you down. And maybe most importantly, it's about humility, focusing on your own growth instead of getting defensive.
Okay, I know what you might be thinking. This all sounds great in theory, but what does it actually look like in the real world? Well, let me tell you a true story that just brings this whole idea to life.
So there's a TV series called The Walk-In, and it's based on the true story of a guy named Robbie Mullen. When we meet Robbie, he's a member of a neo-Nazi group in the UK. His whole worldview is built on these really intense racist and homophobic beliefs. So how does a guy like that change? Well, here's the thing. It wasn't because people yelled at him or lectured him. His transformation started happening slowly because he ended up living with people who challenged his views, but they did it with empathy. They connected with him as a person. They didn't excuse his beliefs, not at all, but they also didn't just throw him away.
And this all builds up to this one really critical moment. He ends up leaving the group, he becomes a whistleblower, and he finds himself testifying in court. And the lawyer asks him, point blank, "Are you still a racist?" In his answer, it's just 2 words. He says, "Less so." Think about that. It's not a no. It's not a claim that he's magically cured. It is a profoundly honest, humble admission of progress. He is less of the problem today than he was yesterday. And that is the entire journey, right there.
Robbie's story is just so powerful, right? But the big question is, how do we take that less so idea and actually use it in our own lives? Well, Dr. Mgadza created a practical toolkit to do exactly that.
And here it is. This is her 12-step reflection guide. Now, it's really important to look at this not as some kind of test or a checklist to become perfect. Think of it more like a framework for daily personal reflection. It's a guide to help you stay on the path, one day at a time.
So instead of going through all 12 one by one, let's look at them in 3 big chunks. First up, it's about acknowledgement. Just being honest with ourselves that, yep, we've all picked up some biases. Then, the middle steps are all about listening and learning. This is where you commit to really hearing others, getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, and catching yourself when you get defensive. And finally, it all leads to action. Speaking up, knowing how to apologize when you mess up, and accepting that this is lifelong work.
Okay, I get it. 12 steps can sound like a lot to remember, but the truth is, you can boil this entire powerful practice down to one simple daily action.
At the end of the day, it all comes down to this. One single prompt you can ask yourself. Today, I became less and less of a blank and more blank. And you fill in those blanks. Maybe today, you became less defensive and more curious, or less of a bystander and more courageous.
And that's really the beauty of this whole approach. It's not about shame, it's about hope,
It's about progress. It's about the quiet, steady power of just trying every day. And it leaves us with one simple question to take with us. What will you become less of today?